Nomadism can be the most liberating, the most freeing experience of your entire life. Going to a new country every single month, that's crazy.
Are you insane?
But there's a huge downside that no one tells you about before you go, and that is the lack of relationships when you're traveling. Before I lived in 10 countries in just 3 years, no one told me this, of course. But once I cracked this code, nomadism was 10 times better than it was solitary, isolated. If you don't solve for the loneliness crisis when nomading, you will burn out and head right back where you came from.
This has been the worst, most backwards day of my life.
So in this video, I'm going to decode everything there is to know about building relationships while you're traveling, while you're nomading all around the world. Let's go. So before we get into the 6 hacks for building relationships while nomading, while traveling the world, I want to first tell you my story because this will give you context about where I come from and how I was able to navigate that issue. I lived in 10 different countries over 3 years in my first 3 years outside of the United States, which is where I'm from. During that time, of course, I had friends that came, friends that went, conversations that were super deep, others that were very superficial. The main problem I had when I was nomading is that I was surrounded by people who were not building, were not entrepreneurs, and therefore just couldn't resonate with the things that I was going through on a daily basis. The routines that I wanted to build, the determination that I had to make money, make impact, and build a business that thrives. But once I found those people, whether it was in Buenos Aires or Ecuador or Costa Rica or Mexico or Colombia, once I made those relationships, I'm now able to say that I can text or call a friend in pretty much every city I go to, whether it's in Europe or Latin America or Southeast Asia, and get a beer or get a coffee or stay on a couch for one night. I cannot tell you, as a former nomad, how important that is when you're used to this lifestyle. But nomadism at its core can be extremely isolating. You're moving from place to place to place to place, and therefore not seeing the same people over and over. So it can be very isolating. It can be very solitary. But if you solve for that issue, you're solving for the number one issue of nomading and can do it forever. Continue traveling forever. Live outside your home country forever. This is the number one reason why people quit traveling. And if you can solve it, you have the whole world in the palm of your hands.
What is he doing?
He's beginning to believe.
All right, so let's go through these 6 hacks to reduce your loneliness and make sure that you nomad for as long as you possibly can, because it's an incredibly meaningful, incredibly enriching experience. All right, number 6, I think I got my fingers right there. The number 6 hack is to stay at least 6 weeks in every location that you go to. Not 1 week, not 2 weeks, not 3 weeks, not anything fleeting. You want to establish a routine. You want to not move so fast. You don't want to be a backpacker, especially while you're building a business and making money, because that lack of routine will completely throw you off.
What is this on my back? What is this?
Get a gym membership. Have a favorite co-working space. Go to your favorite restaurants and bars regularly. When you create a routine around a certain location, you will also create relationships around those places and therefore make that experience in that place a lot less lonely. Number 5, go to local events. So this is a really good way to meet both local people and expats, fellow nomads on your journey. And those same people, because they have a similar pain point as you in terms of meeting people and avoiding that loneliness plague, they want to meet more people. So they're incentivized to reach out to you, to strike up those relationships, strike up those conversations, and make them last for the future. Look at Facebook groups, check out WhatsApp groups, get online and check out what events are possible in your area. And obviously make sure that they're interesting to you. You don't want to go to an event for chess if you're not interested in chess, because you're going to meet people who are interested in chess, and that's just not a good mix. This is the best way to meet as many people as possible in a single setting. Meet 10, 15 people, and those people will expand your luck surface area, introduce you to new people, introduce you to new opportunities, and you never know what's going to happen when you meet a lot of new people. So go to local events, meet a lot of new expats, meet a lot of new nomads and locals as well. Number 4, and I say this with a little bit of hesitation, you'll realize in just a second, but you want to join online communities before you go to a certain location. Let's say I live here in Medellin, Colombia. I want to join the Facebook groups, the WhatsApp groups of this certain location, the soccer group, the hiking group, the expats group, in order to introduce myself and get a feel for the people who I'm going to meet there, as well as the opportunities to meet those people before I eventually go there. Because when you go there, when you end up in that location, you want to hit the ground running. You don't want to be isolated for the first week that you are there. You want to meet people on the first night you're there. Now, the reason I have a little bit of hesitation around this is because you do not want to get entangled in these online communities, because oftentimes, and if you have Nomaded, you know exactly what I'm talking about, these communities can be a hotbed for negativity and just general complaining. So if you join the Medellin expats group, you're going to see a lot of complaining about politics, both in that country and in your home country that you no longer live in. That's always baffled me. So on Facebook, on WhatsApp, on Telegram, search City Digital Nomads or City Expats, Medellin Expats, Medellin Digital Nomads, and you'll find plenty of groups to join and meet a lot of people. All right, number 3 for meeting a lot of people while you're nomading and traveling is to lean into your interests. So I'm really into fitness, I'm really into business, I'm really into sports. And here in Medellin, Colombia, I spend a lot of time doing those things. Therefore, the more I lean into those interests and participate in sports, participate in different gyms and going to networking events for business, the more I'm going to meet more people who are aligned with those interests as well. And for 4 years, I've been doing that here and absolutely loving it. Shared interests equal instant connections. So if you share that bond with someone, if you go to an event that's all about hiking and you're really into hiking, you're going to meet people at that event that are really into hiking. And therefore, you've got something in common, you've got common ground, and you're going to start those relationships on a really good foot. Number 2, and a lot of people disagree with me on this, but I think it's imperative, learn the language at least a little bit. At least a little bit. When I say this, I don't mean your proficiency in that language needs to be absolutely perfect, but just a little bit of knowledge of that language, not just thank you and please and the pleasantries. But if you go a little bit deeper, you can have meaningful conversations with the local people, and I promise that will make your experience 20 times better. You don't want to just be connecting with the nomads. You don't want to just be connecting with the expats who live there permanently. You also want to connect with the killers from that local population, because I guarantee, no matter what you say, there are some. Buenos dias, amor, amor, amor. When I first came to Colombia, Latin America, about 4 years ago, I knew no Spanish. But very quickly, I learned that to get along in this culture, and because I didn't want to surround myself with just people I surrounded myself at home, although they're great, I also want to surround myself with a whole lot of local people, because they've introduced me to different fun activities, events, and expats who have built a life here. So what did I do? I learned the language. I was conversational in about 6 months, and then at about a year mark or 18-month mark, I was fluent in Spanish. And now I can travel to pretty much any country in Latin America, and I've lived in many of them, and get along just fine with the local people. Not only will you get along with the local people a little bit better and the nomads and expats, but they'll also respect you a little bit more. You're giving an effort. You're giving back. All right, the number 1 hack I want to share with you about building relationships while nomading, and that is to build your go-to spots, establish your go-to spots in that city that you're spending 6 or more weeks. In the United States, everybody has a third place. You have your home, you have your work, and you have a third place where you spend a lot of time that's not either of those 2 places. Right? Do the same here in Latin America, in Southeast Asia, in Europe. The more you build consistency in these locations, the more you'll build familiarity and the more friendships you'll build because of it. These are cafes, these are co-working spots, these are spas, these are gyms. These are spaces where you can feel yourself and also connect with people who have shared interests. So those are the 6 hacks to build relationships while you're nomading and traveling outside of your home country. But it brings up the question, is loneliness just the default when you're nomading, when you're traveling the world? And I think it is. Friendships are automatically more superficial because they assume you're going to move on. If you're just spending 6 weeks in a place, if you're just spending a few months in a place, why would somebody take the time to get to know you if you're leaving? But the more you take to heart those 6 hacks that I just shared with you, the more you'll build authentic relationships, which are really important for both men and women. And once you have that global network in place, you'll never be alone. Like I said, you can text a friend, you can call a friend in any city that you land in, grab a beer, grab a coffee, and have a place to stay. I cannot tell you how important that is. Comment down below a keyword like digital nomad or nomad loneliness so that this video gets shown to more people like you and me. And of course, if you want to subscribe, if you want to like this video, it helps even more. If you want more nomading tips, if you want more tips to move abroad, relocate abroad, I'm your guy. Ciao.